Hi folks, today I have a review of the Watercolor Studio Kit by Home Hobby by 3L. I am finally a real YouTuber. I have a box of watercolor supplies to review. So this kit is the Intermediate Watercolor Studio Kit with the project of the Bearded Iris by Robin Berry, and it costs €39.99 or around $45 US. You get this little box that says it's a €45 value and tells you that you can get 53 things inside the box. It's a pretty nice little box. Once you open up the box, you have first a little pamphlet that tells you all the things inside and also gives you some tips on how to use your brand new Watercolor Studio Kit, which I think is pretty cool. Next, you get a little plastic palette, a teensy sharpener, some watercolor pencils, watercolor brushes, a watercolor paint set, watercolor pastels, and of course, some watercolor paper. All of the Watercolor Studio Kits are the same, even if the price varies. The only thing that differs is what instructional product is included. So the watercolor pastels come in 12 colors. They are not listed. You get a really basic round plastic palette with 10 wells. And you get watercolor paint in 12 colors. The watercolor pencils also come in a set of 12. And just like the pastels, these are not listed or marked in any way. You get a set of 5 brushes, 1 flat, 1 filbert, and 3 round brushes. Watercolor paper. You get a pad of 10 sheets of 300 GSM cold press watercolor paper. I'm going to assume cellulose since it is not listed. The paper is pretty sturdy. I'm not the biggest fan of the texture, which is a bit mechanical, and it has a strong texture on one side and almost no texture on the other side, but it works pretty well for a limited number of layers and lays down totally flat when it dries. However, after a series of layers like I normally like to paint, the paper starts to deteriorate. In my kit, one of the rounds was totally broken. In general, these are not very securely attached, and the crimps are just for show. They're not actually using it to attach it to the handle, and even the ones that are securely attached are often kind of crooked, which is not a really great painting experience. Despite all of these shortcomings, somehow these were actually one of the best parts of the kit because the brushes had a pretty okay snap and a pretty sharp tip, but of course, because of the quality of the brushes, I don't know how long that tip will last. About the brushes are very heavily sized when you get them. Make sure to hold them in water in order to get the sizing off. I see people just crushing their brushes, and that's going to do damage to your brush hairs from the really beginning, and you don't want that. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it. See? Nice and soft. So as I said, these pencils are unlabeled. As I was writing with them, I felt very hard. It was pretty difficult to get any pigment out of them, even when dry. And then when they were re-wet, they had this kind of weird gooey texture, which I was not particularly fond of. And the white pencil is absolutely useless. The pastels are a lot softer than the pencils and very dusty. You're gonna make a really big mess. They are kind of fun to use, and they definitely have more pigment than the pencils. However, they also have this weird glue-like texture when they are wet, and they were also unlabeled. Lemon yellow, ochre yellow, vermilion, crimson red, violet, Prussian blue, grass green, deep green, burnt sienna, burnt umber, black, and white. The watercolor paint comes in tubes, which you can put into the palette or just use from the tube. You have to puncture the top in order to open them up, which was a funny experience. These colors were pretty opaque. They had a kind of strange, similar to the pencils and pastels kind of gluey texture. I guess they're probably using the same coloring in all of these. It's a bit upsetting that this is not a split primary palette. You only get one blue, just one Prussian. I mean, I love Prussian, but you don't get a Prussian and an ultramarine. You get this crimson, which is about as close as you're getting to a quinacridone color, but still a bit too warm. I am thankful for the inclusion of a yellow and a yellow ochre, and a violet, since we don't really have a cool red to mix a nice purple with. Once they dry, the colors are quite chalky and there is no pigment information for any of these colors. The colors do not really flow together or make flat washes naturally. So I wanted to show you this picture. This is a picture that convinced me to do a review of this product. I've been having more and more companies contacting me, asking me to do reviews, and I've been trying to be very careful with who I say yes to. And part of what convinced me was this image, because I was really excited that Home Hobby said that they were working with artists to create these boxes. And I love anything that's really done in cooperation with artists. And I saw this picture and I could tell that it was made with watercolors that actually use pigments. You can see that there's ultramarine granulating out from the purple there. So I figured that the paints would be of a higher quality, at least student grade. And I also really like that they had a box for intermediate painters. I feel that intermediate painters are most often excluded. Almost everything caters for beginner painters, and then you're just kind of lost once you're an intermediate painter. And I really thought it would be so cool if I could find a product for you guys that would help those of you who feel that they are intermediate. But then I looked at the instructions for the project and, well, as you've already seen, the paints are not using real pigments. You're not going to get that ultramarine granulation, but the entire flower has only 3 steps of instruction. That is definitely not something that's going to help an intermediate painter, and I don't think that's going to help a beginner painter, and an advanced painter is not going to buy something like this box. Not only that, but this is the flower that is painted in the video. This flower is very clearly not the flower on the box, which is painted by Robin Berry. Also, if you look at the video and you look at the instructions, the things that the person is doing in the video are not the same as the written instructions. Also, the outline that is provided is extremely confusing and difficult to use if you wanted to transfer this image onto paper. So for me, that was pretty disappointing because looking at the value of the supplies in the box, they definitely don't add up to how much it costs. But I thought that would be made up by the instruction and the project. But that was also lacking. So I tried here to paint a version of Robin Berry's flower myself just to see if it was possible to get something close with these paints and with the supplies that we are given. And it is. But I did not follow the video or the written instructions that were given. I just looked at the painting myself and used my own sketch and attempted to create it. So overall, talking about this, what are the pros? I think the pros are that they are European-based companies, so it's easy for European artists to get. I think a lot of these watercolor boxes are more US-based, so it's cool that it's based in Europe. It definitely allows you to try a bunch of different ways of doing watercolors. You get watercolor paints, you get watercolor pastels, watercolor pencils. And you even get several different kinds of brushes so that if you can find out if you like working with a flat brush or a filbert or a round, so you can definitely experiment with that. You don't have to go out and put it together yourself. I'm the type of person I like to put together my supplies, but for some people that's kind of overwhelming. So you are all ready to go and you just have to add water if you go with this kit. And it even gives you a project so you're not wondering what to paint. Cons. I sincerely don't think that the quality of the products in this kit add up to the price that you would pay for the box. I think that you could go and buy these separately if you wanted to. And some of the products came to me broken. The instruction is lacking and confusing and not really as advertised. And if you're the type of person who doesn't mind putting together your own kits, you could really achieve this yourself by just going out, buying supplies, and then watching a YouTube speed paint video. Actually, because of my frustrations with this kit, I decided to make a video talking about the different grades of watercolor and also making my own tutorial for painting a bearded iris. And I'm going to have that linked at the end of this video and also in the description below. Despite how I ended up feeling about this box, I'm really thankful to Home Hobby by 3L for sending me this box and for providing 2 more boxes for a giveaway. So please see the details in the description to see how you can enter into a giveaway to get this box and try it out for yourself. I hope that was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think. See you next time. And until then, be gentle with yourself. Bye.